I mean, a fallen angel today is Ford. So we're not going to pick on Ford, but we're just going to point to it as a well-known company. So this is a car manufacturer. They employ hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in very important political states. Michigan, Ohio, I think, Tennessee, probably. But Ohio and Michigan, obviously critical states. And they, issue debt into the market to fund, building factories or buying equipment. Who buys that debt? Pension funds buy the debt. Family offices buy the debt. Hedge funds buy the debt. Now, those guys were giving out a coupon, and they were paying, let's just say, 4, 5, or 6% a year on this interest. But now, because of all this economic uncertainty, people think that their ability to pay that back has gone way down. And so now they have to issue debt at much higher interest rates. And the existing debt has a much lower credit quality. It's effectively like you having a credit card and, American Express calling you and saying, Jason, I think the odds of you paying your credit card balance have gone way down. So I'm increasing your interest rate to 24% from 17%.
Yeah. And then I get another credit card to pay it off.
And so essentially what's happened is the Federal Reserve has decided to become that next credit card issuer. Now,
what could go wrong?
Instead of doing it for you, they're doing it for companies, but not for you. And the question is that okay? Well, at some level, companies like Ford should be saved because I think these are iconic businesses that employ hundreds of thousands of people and they're critical linchpins in the economy, right? Because they have a massive supply chain network and, they're really important for many other things beyond just the economics that they themselves represent. But there are better ways to help Ford. You could lend Ford as much money as they needed to meet their short-term obligations, similarly to the way that the Federal Reserve would allow a bank to borrow from their window. And I think that that's a very reasonable approach. The question is really when the Fed then basically acts as a buyer of last resort and obfuscates the price of these bonds and essentially is saying the American taxpayer will own these bonds for the foreseeable future. If you think that at some point those bonds that you bought for, 90 cents on the dollar are worth 90 cents on the dollar, then everything is okay. But if there's a chance that 90 cents goes to 70 cents, the people that really eat that cost are us in the short term and our children in the medium and long term.
I have a silly question. It's obviously not my wheelhouse, corporate debt like this. Why wouldn't there be a clause that if they didn't pay back that 90 cents on the dollar that the American government bought it for, it converts into equity in the company?
It's a great question because the Federal Reserve has chosen to go and essentially the equivalent of open an E-Trade account and step into the markets by themselves and just buy. So they're buying bonds and they're buying individual bonds and they're buying indices that control or that have exposure to certain bonds. What they are not doing is going directly to these companies and negotiating, essentially saying, I will give you $4 or $5 billion. And what I want you to do is retire that old debt and replace it with this new instrument. And here are the terms of this new instrument. The United States taxpayer gets, 3% or 4% warrant coverage of the company.
Yum, yum.
You must make sure that the pension holders
are
made whole.
It's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we have those clauses? It's like basic blocking and tackling that, seed funds have.